Go.
Oh, I thought you were gonna play the intro. Do we just put that in post now?
I don't have an intro for this song yet. For this one yet.
Okay.
Because this is mysteries.
Oh yeah, okay.
So
Make
it
it
can be
spooky.
like the X-Files themes.
Do-do-do-dee-doo.
They'll probably
Anyways,
get copyrighted straight though.
hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. No, okay. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast today, this week, and welcome, and hope you're all doing well. This week we've got a little special episode for you. This episode's titled Mattie's Mysteries.
Oh wow.
I'm spitting a little bit. This episode's titled
Mattie's and mysteries.
This episode's
Mattie's
entitled.
This is an entirely different show. You know that, right?
This episode's called Mattie's Mysteries. Mattie's Mysteries.
Okay,
Take it away,
Yeah,
Mattie,
that's
with
me.
your
Okay.
mysteries.
Okay.
So
How many topics have you brought?
I have a couple that I'm gonna scroll through and talk about because I'm really passionate, especially about cryptids and other lore, because I feel like I never ever find books about them,
Right.
and that's the frustrating thing is that cryptozoology isn't taken seriously.
I
And
wonder why.
That's the thing though. There are so many things that are unexplained, and I feel like it needs to be given a little more credit.
Right.
Because so many people are seeing so many things, and there's so many different stories in different countries and different places and different cultures, and I feel like just everyone writes it off as it's nothing. But if so many people are experiencing kind of the same phenomena in different places, then I feel like it shouldn't be written off. But
Yeah.
so I found one that it really creeped me out to the point where I don't think I've ever been creeped out by something like it before, just how it felt, and that's the one that I'll end with. But so I found a couple of interesting cryptid stories.
Do I get to talk
and-
about Sonic on this podcast too?
No.
Darn.
So, I mean, is Sonic a cryptid? Yes or no?
So the tale of Green Hillside.
No. This is Maddie's podcast, man.
Okay, so one story I wanted to start with, it's just a small one, and then I'm going to read another one from, it's basically straight out of the Desert Oracle, is what I'm going
Did
to
you
read.
bring that today?
I didn't actually. I meant to
Damn.
grab it, and I didn't.
Bad.
I know. But, so, this one intrigued me, just the way that it's phrased. So, starting off with a tiny baby cryptid story. I found this.
Would you? Okay.
We're just
Okay.
babies. Where's it
I
got
just
babies
was
in
gonna
it?
ask for an explanation for just a very quick explanation
Oh, go
of the
for it.
Desert Oracle.
The Desert Oracle is a book that I found at Barnes & Noble about a week about a week ago.
Who's at my house and we
Um,
party every week or so.
Exactly. And it's this yellow book, and it looks like an old-timey field guide kind of book. That's how it's supposed to be written.
Cool.
The Desert Oracle, I believe his name is Ken Lane, and he started a podcast or a kind of radio show talking about surviving in Joshua Tree
I love that.
Park and surviving the desert. And I know that he has a lot more of
Did
a backstory to it, but I don't exactly remember what it is, unfortunately.
Nice. That's
What's
awesome.
the podcast?
I think it's just literally called the Desert Oracle.
I thought you were asking what is a podcast
Um,
in general.
buddy, I have some news for you.
No, I was asking.
Okay, it's this. It's just this.
It's-
It's fine.
You know what we're doing right now.
Um,
I got chicken stuck in my teeth. I just got it out.
we got talking and we're
I'm sorry. What's your
Yeah, I'm gonna have both of you cease talking. Thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, the Desert Oracle is a bunch of different tales. It's true things from the desert, specifically the Mojave Desert. And so
You want me to play some spooky music?
go
already?
for it, buddy.
Okay,
Isn't the
let me find
Mojave
it.
Desert like from Fallout?
That is from Fallout New Vegas,
It's
but it's
from
also
Fallout New
based on a
Vegas.
real place, just like
Wait,
Fallout 4 is
what?
in Boston.
And there's a ton of different stories I definitely could have gone in, but there was one that stood out to me that I'm just gonna read straight out of it because I can't phrase it better than the guy who wrote it. And the guy the way he writes is so funny. It's so matter of fact, and it's so casual, especially about something as terrifying as, like the desert, the unknown. Literally a book called The Oracle. Absolutely horrifying, and he makes it very, very funny. But what I have is a mini kind of thing that I found it's California. They're called the Dark Watchers. That's the first crypt.
This oceanside Verbo is about to...
No, this is not what I
This
wanted.
ocean
I'm sorry.
sad verb.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. This is what I want.
Okay. That's perfect. Okay, so there are... I'm going to read this one, and then I'm going to read the one about the one in my state in Vermont. Because it was from...
Sorry, that was too loud.
Welcome.
Should we just play the Halo music?
Maybe.
That'd be sick. But
I don't want to get copyright claims. I already did on the last podcast that we did.
That's
these
awesome.
are...
But-
this is from a website from boardingarea.com about the 50 cryptids of each state. And a lot of them are very similar too. I'm just going to throw this in there. They all fall under the categories of a sea monster of sorts, a giant flying prehistoric bird, wolves.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about this.
And like small aliens. And then another thing that
Ooh.
is a common theme is asylum patients. And that's one that they had in, I think it was Massachusetts or another like weird state like Ohio,
Whoa.
where it was a bunch of like giant blue like they
Like
had
Avatar?
giant blue heads, but they're tiny people, and they were
Little
escaped
guys?
asylum patients, and they were like
Like this tall?
wow, they
Sorry.
can really see that. Listening to a podcast, it's this tall.
Is this tall?
It's this tall.
Like
Use your
from American
imagination.
Dad.
Okay.
If you've ever seen Daxton King, then
That
you would
tall,
know. It's
okay.
basically about that tall, but imagine him with a bigger head.
Like-
They were asylum patients, and they would breed together, and they would like kill people in the woods. Apparently, like it's a whole whatever. But
Right.
the one that I'm starting with
This
is
guy.
the Dark Watchers from California. So it says that the native Chumash tribe of California's Central Coast has been around for thousands of years, and even they call the Dark Watchers the Old Ones. More recently,
Max's face.
John Steinbeck wrote of the mysterious figures, "No one knew who the Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and never to show interest in them."
Isn't... Oh, sorry.
John Steinbeck is the author, yes.
No, I mean, the Watchers, wasn't that also a cult from the 80s?
It's, I think,
Where they had, like,
It
dirty
was.
kids in rags? And they were, like, men in suits?
there was something about... And then there's also an unsolved mystery about the Watcher who actually stalked a family and left letters
I think I know.
into their
like,
house.
I
It was
think I remember
totally
that
crazy.
one.
You know, Lily knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We're going to need a podcast just for her and the Watcher. And so, this is
Just for her and the Watcher himself?
Honestly, yes. She's going to interview the Watcher.
Sick.
So it says, the faces of these so-called Dark Watchers have never been seen, and they never make a sound. Witnesses describe dark silhouettes up to 15 feet tall, lurking against the twilight sky, often with flowing cloaks,
That's like-
wide-brimmed hats, or walking sticks.
Hold on, 15 feet tall?
That reminds
Yes.
me of...
Siren head?
and
Siren head, yeah.
That or, like, the Mario game where, like, in the top corner, there's, like, those big, like, silhouette figures
Oh my goodness.
with eyes. You know what I'm talking
Oh
about?
yeah, that's so creepy.
That's where
from Mario Galaxy. There's
That's-
like they're like literal Dark Watchers where they're like 15 feet tall, black silhouettes.
Yeah.
The same exact thing
That's
as that.
basically what
Yeah,
this
it's terrifying.
is. But the fact that these are rooted in native culture,
Sorry.
and that
Yes,
you're
please.
basically told not to acknowledge their presence for fear of
Yeah,
what
just
they can
don't
do
worry
to you.
about the Dark Watchers, guys.
Just so-
And then
Can
there's
you just chill about the Dark Watchers? Like, guys, chill. They're just chill.
It's
Guys,
fine. Like
Dave
just,
is on FX and Hulu.
okay. So the next one
Sorry.
I have is from my
Looks like my brother.
state, Vermont. And it's funny because I did research on this, and I'm actually quite upset about this story because of how it was interpreted and the things that went down with it. So it's the Northfield Pigman, and I actually live right by that town in Northfield, and
Whoa.
I've never heard about this before until I read it on this site. So it's about this kid named Sam Harris. So, sightings of a previously unseen pigman shortly after the teenager's disappearance on Halloween of 1951 conjure just two alternatives. Either young Harris transformed into a pigman, or a pre-existing pigman ate him.
I remember you telling me about
I
it.
was
What?
very upset about
Yeah,
it.
because... Yeah. Okay.
So-
I'll let you get to it.
Whatever happened to Sam, years after his disappearance, some high school students reported a monster emerging from the woods. It walked like a man, but was covered in white fur and had a pig's face. And
Oh my god.
that is terrifying in itself. But the more that I did research of it, they don't even call it the Northfield Pigman. They just call him Sam Harris.
That's messed up.
Then they went, I think I may have remembered this incorrectly, that they did like a 19-day search for this guy. And they've never found him or
I
his
remember
body.
you telling me
So-
that. Yeah.
I think what was more upsetting is that there was more of a lore built around him instead of an investigation.
Right.
And I think, like, I feel bad for Sam Harris and his family. This, you know, since 1951, that's, like, around, my math could be so, like, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
And no one knows what happened to this guy. And they're like, yeah, it's just the Pigman in the woods. It's fine. But
Oh my god.
that's the one from my state that really grinds my gears. It
That's
burns my
spooky.
croissant. And it makes me very upset.
Spoopy.
Because I've never heard about this.
Right.
And it's just this poor guy who went missing. And he was probably, like, brutally murdered.
Yeah.
Dumped somewhere and never found. And they're like, oh, Sam Harris.
No,
you
he
know,
was
the
ate
guy
by
who's
a
the
pig
Pigman.
man.
You never know.
You
Well,
never-
brutally murdered by a Pigman.
Yeah, it's, well, Minecraft.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, he went to
He was a
Nether.
he got eaten
He
by a
was-
zombie
He
pig
just
man.
went to the Nether. What are you guys talking about?
He'll be right back. He'll be right back. He's just doing some silly little
He
tasks
died in
the
hardcore
Nether.
mode.
Rip Sam Harris, by the way. My respects out to his family. And then the next story that I have is from the Desert Oracle. It's called The Tales of the Yucca Man.
Yucca yucca wee.
And
Yucca, yucca,
so I'm just
wee,
going to
wicca,
read
yai,
straight out
hi,
of it
yee,
from
ho.
Mr. Ken Lane. It's
Boda.
11 minutes, 2,903 words, baby. Let's go.
Yes.
So let me.
You gonna read
That's
all of it?
Yeah.
All.
It's
All will
beautifully
be
written,
read.
and then I have another story after this. That's the big shebang.
Psyched.
The one that
Auger.
I.
The big shebang.
Okay,
Life
So.
could be a dream.
shush. Let's get this started. The story you'll hear most often goes like this. There's a young Marine on guard duty in some far-off corner of the massive 29 Palms Desert Training Base. He hears an awful sound in the dark, something like a growl. Then the breathing, coming from one side of the lonesome little guard booth, and now from the other. It's circling him. He
Whoa.
steps out into the dark,
What?
his sidearm drawn. There it stands, 8 feet tall, an unbearable stench from its hairy body, the eyes glowing like red coals. Sometimes the Marine is knocked unconscious by the beast and found hours later by the next shift. One version occurs at the old rifle range, where the watchman, also armed with a rifle, wakes from the assault to find his weapon bent in half.
Oh my god.
Since
Whoa.
the 1970s, when the Mojave Desert Base expanded from its World War II encampment, there have been regular reports of new recruits terrorized by both the Yucca Man and pranks inspired by the tales itself.
Yucca Man.
Yucca yucca wee.
But most sightings of the spectral creature come from campers and hikers at Joshua Tree National Park, which the Desert Oracle was written around. Tents have been opened in the night by stinking monstrosities, and there's an occasional large footprint or blurry photograph submitted as evidence. A snapshot from the Hidden Valley campground has made the rounds for a decade now. The figure bounding over the boulders looks much like the iconic Bigfoot from the Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967.
Whoa.
And this is the photograph right here.
Oh my god.
Since the 1960s, when tales of Yucca Man and his desert cohorts were commonly reported by Southern California newspapers and television stations, amateur cryptozoologists and Bigfoot researchers have analyzed the blurry pictures and measured the prints in the sand, all in the effort to document a flesh and blood creature they believe exists alongside everyday mammals such as bears, coyotes, and humans. But the natives who lived in California long before European colonization considered these creatures to be supernatural entities, with names that often translated to hairy devils. They took care to avoid the gloomy spots where the devils were often seen. And it was the Tongva people living around the Santa Ana River, called the Devil's Hideout, east of the river's source in the San Bernardino Mountains, the camp of the Taquis. Presented the name as the Taquis, known to the, I think it's the Cahuila of Agua Caliente.
That was
I
really
can't
good.
pronounce. Thank you. I took Spanish for 3 years. You'd think I'd be good at that. Anyway, according to John Reed Swan's The Indian Tribes of North America, Taquis also survived as a site name at the head of the Santa Margarita River at Temecula Creek. Throughout Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley, you'll see it spelled Taquis. The angry specter's unhappy home in the region is the cursed, emphasis on the word cursed,
Cursed.
Taquis Canyon. And
Just
so,
Sinky Sam, he's at Coachella.
sometimes the Taquis played a role in the creation stories, as in the Cahuilla culture. And other times, the creature was known as an omen, or simply something weird in the wilderness that had to be avoided.
An omen?
An
What?
omen.
Hold on. Max, what did you just put in your mouth?
Is that
I
a
don't have
quarter?
anything in my mouth.
Spit it out.
Spit it out.
Spit it out.
Spit what out?
Spit it out.
Get.
I don't have any.
What's
I
in
will
your
call
mouth?
the Yucca Man to get you.
It's okay.
Okay.
That was yucca ton, man.
That was yucca yummy.
And to the Cahuilla, the Taquis could be the original shaman and a murderous monstrosity that collected victims from their culture as well.
The original shaman.
So, with all of that, they've also been said to manifest as a large green fireball moving through the night sky.
That's
Excuse me?
awesome.
Yes.
That sounds like Swamp Thing.
Yeah, that
Ex-
kind of does.
So the coastal and desert Indians should know the same creature is not in itself cause for skepticism. Under various names and dressed in myriad traditions, Yucca Man has been reported in the wilder parts of Southern California as long as people have lived there. So throughout all that time, people have been talking about it the entire time.
Yucca Man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
It was also, so in Fontana, from 1955, there was a Mickey Thompson's Fontana Dragway there. So there was a closure in 1955. Oh no, it opened in 1955 and then it closed in 1972. Following a gruesome series of fatal crashes, spectators repeatedly saw something they called the Speedway Monster. Assumed to be a wild man, resident of the foothills of the nearby San Bernardino Mountains.
Foothill, foothill, foothill. Oh, it's just Mickey Foothill.
That's where you're gonna move to, Foothill.
Up on... Sorry, I'm not gonna go up.
What?
I can't do that. Okay, so it had the habit of crossing the rural land at the Dragway's edge during car races that produced horrific noise. And then it talks more about the Mojave Sasquatch and the epidemic levels from the late 1960s to the late 70s with different housing developments. So it's talking more about the more that people started to arrive, the more it started to move around and the more it kind of started to hide. And so here's another one.
What are you doing? You're making so much noise with the microphone. Stop. You do this every time. Stop messing with it, dude.
May I finish my story?
It's ruining the audio. Legitimately.
Okay. So the Antelope Valley Daily Ledger Gazette described the common features of the eyewitness reports in a staff report from June 1973 beneath the headline, Bigfoot surfaces again in Palmdale, 9 Mile
Bigfoot.
Canyon. According to reporter Chuck Wheeler, the creature likes to run around houses and leave footprints. That's its MO in the East Lancaster area, where footprints were found around several houses recently. One woman reported that the creatures ran around her house and scratched at the door. And this is one of my favorite stories. Okay. A small boy, sent to tell his father supper was ready, was found hours later crying near the corral. When asked what happened to him, he answered that a big furry man would not let him pass. And so there were a ton of different reports, and that there were even 2 separate vigilante groups searching for the monster that nearly killed each other 2 months later at the start in 1973.
What a bunch of idiots.
Exactly. And so it was... Okay, so the news article said, in May 1973, a search party in Lancaster attempting to follow up on several Bigfoot reports were forced to take cover when another party of the same sort of search panicked and started shooting when they thought that they were being approached by a large creature. Fortunately, no one was injured.
That's so stupid.
And then this is where it really gets juicy. The strangest tales come from the Edwards AFB itself. The desert base adjoins the massive Rogers Dry Lake, with its miles of smooth desert runways, and is famed for its right stuff test pilots and landings of NASA space shuttles. There is significant subterranean infrastructure at Edwards AFB, with the personnel and technology required to keep secret aircraft a secret. Security cameras were always pointed at sensitive areas. According to persistent stories from Edwards, those cameras repeatedly captured images of desert Sasquatch moving through the tunnels by night, Entire families of the hairy monsters apparently traveled the base's buildings and corridors, appearing and disappearing at will, and to the bewilderment of base police sent chasing after the phantasms. So, with all of that being
Crazy,
said,
man.
exactly. And then there's another
Families?
story from a report from a guy named Bobby Ann Slate, who is a tireless Bigfoot researcher, and he was patrolling the old sled track. So he said, heading back to the main base, I noticed maybe 200 to 300 yards to my left these large blue eyes. I do a lot of night hunting, and it was strange. They were larger than anything I'd seen before. The blue eyes had to be about 4 inches apart and 7 feet off of the ground. I
That's
stopped.
more than 6 feet.
That is more than 6 feet.
That's more than, like, a human. Jesus.
Yeah. I stopped the truck and sat there watching
Crazy.
them. It was too dark to see any body shape to the thing. The blue glows proceeded towards my truck at a right angle for about 100 yards and then stopped.
What? Sounds like a yucca oh no situation.
And then it also says, as an overpowering stench filled the desert air, Sergeant House saw the huge blue eyes again, now just 50 yards away. The movement of the eyes was extremely fast. Another thing that bothered me was that they didn't bob up and down. It was like two lights on a wire moving from one point to another.
Oh my god.
A radio call gave him a good reason to drive away fast. And so many people, would encounter these, but they were afraid that they would get harassed for talking about it. So it was not until 2009 that the Air Force Base would officially acknowledge the many incidents about the blue eyes and the other strange phenomena.
Why are all these monsters so stinky?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Like, why are they stankin'?
Why are they stinking, dude?
Well,
What?
you have to think, like, they're
stinky? They're
by
really
all these
stinky.
other things.
Also, this music is slapping.
And then
Yeah.
there's another great story about the area around that. There's a deep water hole by
Somebody's
Elizabeth Lake where the Sierra Pelona Mountains meet Antelope Valley. And there are tales of a shadowy winged beast.
Uh-oh.
It's called the Laguna del Diablo.
Ooh.
And it said that, here, I'll just quote it. The winged wraith flew over the hacienda of Don Chico Vasquez, a man unimpressed by the folklore surrounding the lake. It was his foreman who alerted the Don to the beast thrashing in the mud on the cursed lake shore. He saw it too, but the creature vanished, whether into the lake or into the sky or into thin air, they never knew. Cattle and horses began disappearing shortly thereafter, with the eventual discovery of several carcasses leading to the belief that the devil in the lake had grown
What?
hungry for meat. As with the hairy monsters, the winged lake beast also assaulted the rancho with its vile stench.
Jesus Christ.
Honestly,
Another stinky
they
dog.
don't know how to shower,
Oh,
alright?
they all
They're
stink.
in muddy lakes, and they probably, like, crap themselves. I mean, come on, it's a giant monster. Do you think they found toilet paper yet? I highly doubt that.
Well, why are they so stinky?
And they also
Why are they
considered
so stinky?
like
they
they're
also
farting.
considered this winged creature to be a dragon,
Oh my god.
and that it continues to haunt the lake.
I
to
love that
this
you look
day.
so happy when talking about
yeah,
monsters.
it sounds like these are your kids.
Yeah.
I know. I'm so proud of my children. Okay, so that's more of the Yucca Man in the
Stank it,
Mojave
dude.
Desert
The Yucca
and the
Man.
things there. And then this, I really want to just rush through that and get a proper synopsis to get
That
to
was
my
good.
main point.
That was awesome.
Yeah, you guys
sick.
like that?
Yeah, that
I
was
loved
very
that.
scary.
Is it scary enough?
It's a little spooky.
Okay,
I'm gonna
so
say.
this
was-
is the one
Yeah.
oh go ahead.
I'm
sorry.
pooping
No,
my
no, no, I'm
pants.
fine. That was good.
This is the one that I've been preparing for, that I've wanted to talk about, because it's something that at first glance wouldn't matter to you until maybe 5 minutes later, once you set in and just knew something was wrong. So let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever been around somebody who acted like totally fine, was a normal human being, and everything felt totally right? And then you walk away from that situation, and then you just get hit with that feeling of something was off, and I don't know what it was.
Yeah, a little bit.
Maybe.
So
I feel that with most social interactions.
I mean, on a more, like, terrifying level. Like, it's almost It's like when you look at a doll or a mannequin or a
Oh,
marionette.
like the
And they're modeled after... I got that a few times. Thank you, Lily. I'm so glad. So true, bestie.
so true, bestie.
So,
So true, bestie.
it's more on a level of you encounter something much like a marionette or a mannequin where it's supposed to be modeling after a human, and you
It's
go,
like-
yeah, that's just a person, and then it sits with you.
The Uncanny Valley type thing.
Oh, that's not a person. So this is a story called
Interesting.
Not a Deer.
I love stuff like this.
Okay. So I'm just going to read straight from the blog post. I
Sweet.
found it on Tumblr. Don't roast me.
No, I don't care.
Okay, and this is set in the Appalachian Mountains. So I'll just read. Anyone who spends decent amount of time in Appalachia knows the knot deer. If you've gone on the Blue Ridge Parkway at night, you've probably seen him. Now keep in mind, if you don't live in an area with a lot of deer, deer are just freaky on their own. They're really big, extremely
Yeah.
agile, move surprisingly quietly, and are extremely durable.
Yeah.
It's not a...
Kind of terrifying in and of themselves.
Exactly. And the story's going to make them more terrifying. And another side point that I'll get to earlier, my dad actually helped me with a story. So shout out to
This
Ben.
story?
Shout out to Ben, yeah.
Yeah.
He gave me more insight on it that I didn't even think about. So, shout
Go
out to Ben.
Ben.
Go Ben. Redemption arc for Ben. So, moving on. It's not unheard of for someone to hit a deer and total their car. Once I heard a story of a man who hit a deer on accident and decided to take it home and at least get some good meat out of a bad situation. That's a
I've heard of
sentence.
this story, I think.
On the drive home, the deer woke up and absolutely shredded the inside of the man's trunk. They're very cute, but you definitely don't want to mess around with them. Just keep that relationship in the back of your mind as you listen to this story. Anyway, the knot deer is more or less what I'd call a folk cryptid. Everyone has their story about it. They're all somewhat similar. You're in a car at night, in a rural, heavily wooded area, and probably a bit lost. It's not wildly uncommon to see a possum crossing the road, see blips of little animals with your headlights. You see a deer, so you and your friends go, "Oh, deer!" and slow down in case it leaves
Mhm.
right in front of your car. Then you see it more clearly. There's just something wrong about it. There's something about its eyes. You feel your stomach get heavy like a rock, the hair on your neck raise. You sense intelligence that you shouldn't. It doesn't move like a deer. It moves like a, oh God, what is that thing? Whatever that thing is, it's not a deer and we need to leave. You hit the gas and get the heck out of there. A group of my friends, the person who wrote this, got lost on the parkway once and reemerged with a chilling story. They aren't the kind of folks to lie or over-exaggerate. Among other freaky stuff that happened, the driver claimed she saw a deer in the road. Then she noticed the deer was standing on only 2 legs.
What?
Cool.
Yeah, and then there's
Bonkers.
more stories connected to this. So this is from another person on Tumblr called Did You Notice? It says, I have a story about the knot deer from 2 summers ago. I lived deep in the Appalachian Mountains at the time. Unlike the foothills I'm in now, I was wandering in the woods, probably 2/3 of a mile from my house at that point, as one does when they live 2 miles down a twisting dirt road with the nearest town, and therefore things to do 30 minutes away. Totally get that. That's Vermont in a nutshell. When I heard brush moving, I knew it was probably a harmless animal, a possum, or a deer. Maybe a particularly destructive rabbit. And I turned to look. Well, it was a deer in the way that a graveyard is a playground. You can treat it as such, I guess, but it won't
What?
seal the same. It was about 30 feet away from me, staring. Wild deer don't stare at random people to begin with. They just run away.
Right.
She was breathing hard and making a low rumbling sound. I didn't really know what to do, and I hadn't really thought about the dangers of going near wild animals, even if they are harmless deer. So I went towards her. I swear to God, this thing's eyes blanked out, and it took a couple jerking steps forward, moving really strangely. And I flinched, because what the heck? Then she ran off to the side while staring at me until she was about 50 feet away. It was deeply unsettling in a way I can't explain, but I know that thing was not quite a deer. And then there's even more.
I'm not gonna sleep tonight.
And then there's another story from Root and Rock, the page that I got it from itself.
I think I had heard that initial blog post before. I
Mhm.
didn't hear the second one.
Yeah, and then there's this one. This is the one that really got me, because I read this story while I was sitting outside at work. I found it on Instagram, and that's what sparked everything, because it just sat with me. Can you imagine encountering something, and you're like, oh, I know what that is, and then
it's
every
twists.
instinct in your body is telling you that it's not it.
Yeah, sometimes thinking you know what something is a little more scary than not knowing.
Exactly, because it's your
Right.
brain trying to convince you that what you're seeing is safe. And meanwhile, your fight or flight instincts are gonna kick in, and you're gonna
Right.
be freaked out.
Yeah.
And we're raised, like, there's Bambi. There's a movie. Oh, the mom died. Everyone was sad about it. But everyone's like, oh, it's a cute deer. Every time I see a deer, I get excited. I'm like, oh my god, deer. That's so cool. And then it's like, can you imagine, like, encountering, like, a small little animal and having that feeling? Like, absolutely terrifying. Because they're not predators at all. And I think that's what's wrong, is that they have, like, an aura of a predator kind of animal instead of being prey,
Yeah.
like we all recognize them as. And this is this next blog post goes a little more into it, so I'll read that. I've seen something like this myself. I just be hitting the drum while talking about the deer. All right. I would say the joints went the wrong way, but it was more that there might have been more or less joints than you'd expect. The bends were not where the bends go. And the shape of the face was wrong in a way I describe as, you have a friend who only draws wolves. They're really, really, really good at drawing wolves. You want them to draw a deer, and they try their best, and neither of you are exactly pleased with the results. There was also an issue of scale.
That's a really good way of explaining
Like you
it.
gave a deer the proportions of a moose instead. I've heard deer comes the word from, I think it's Dior, like the brand, which just means beast or quadruped. So it was definitely a Dior, but 100% not a deer. So this person also said, I collect spooky stories from other people, and a friend once told me about driving back from a ghost hunt out in southeast Oklahoma, seeing what they described as like a deer that stood in the middle of the road and refused to move. So when one of them got out to go shoo it away by hand, they all realized about the same time that it was only almost a deer. They described the collective reaction as wildly disproportionate to what they remember having seen, which was just not quite a deer. They said that there was about 15 minutes of foot to the floor speeding before they all, right at the same time, felt a change in mood come over them, and they began to sob like little scared kids.
Whoa.
It was only weeks later that they were like, deer don't look anything like that. And then I found some Reddit posts, and they kind of draw it, and you can see it's built like a moose. Like,
my
that's
God.
not, it seems like, because deer are very instinctual animals. If they feel threatened, they're gonna run away. This is like if they turned into predators, essentially, as I was saying. So, anything else you wanted to add?
Like, prey to predator is terrifying.
It's like basically the whole Zootopia plot right now.
Zootopia is a horror movie.
Zootopia is absolutely a horror movie. And this is, again, like, we're all, taught that things are a specific way. Oh, they even have a little drawing in the corner of it standing on its hind legs.
Oh my God.
But it's more like it's built like an elk and a moose, and the face, like, they even described that the eyes weren't on the sides of its head like a prey animal.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was forward facing
That's
like
terrifying.
a predator.
What the heck?
And it's to what my dad actually contributed. Because I told him about it, because I was hyping myself up for this
Right.
for weeks before I've been wanting to tell you guys a story forever. It scared me so much
Mm-hmm.
because, like, now I'll see deer for the rest of my life and be like, is that really a deer or
Yeah.
not? And I think that in itself is so interesting. But I told him about the story, and Classic Ben, was like, that they make robotic deer decoys and put them in fields, right?
What?
And so they do that to catch poachers, actually. But this is what they look like. It's a robot deer, and it's in Florida. That looks like a deer. I mean, it's not, hunched over and doesn't have the predatory stance or anything, but, like,
Whoa.
that's another weird factor is, I'm just gonna spitball here. Imagine if, you saw a deer kind of, like, just sitting in the woods, and you see it just mechanically jerking.
That would be
I
terrifying.
would lose my mind. That's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
And then it said, I love this. A robotic deer decoy used in Georgia had to be replaced in 2006 after being shot more than 1,000 times.
I mean, if I had a gun and I saw a deer kind of turn its head, kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese robot, I would shoot it probably more than 1,000 times too, because it would just take a bullet and spark a little, and take another bullet and spark a little, and take another bullet, not like a deer. But that goes down in a couple bullets, maybe.
Exactly. And these robots are made to catch people who are trying to, poach them when it's not deer season. But another interesting thing is that they're specifically put, along roadways where the people are then seeing these deer. But, from the stories of the not deer, those things are moving and breathing and growling and staring at people. So this just was an interesting side point that my dad Ben contributed to the story. And then oh, I forgot. I have another story too.
Bonus story.
I have a bonus
Bonus
story
story.
that I've completely forgot about.
Bonus
But
story.
on another note of the deer, growing up in New England, I'm pretty sure, you read about your permit. They talk about, don't hit a deer, please. That's going to damage your car.
Yeah.
Like they've
Right.
flown through windows. They've, hurt people.
Right.
And then there's moose. And it's
Yeah.
basically the fear of God is put into you. If you ever drive by a moose, I would
I've
immediately
driven by a moose.
punch it and go as fast as I can, because those things, like what they're describing those not deer as, are the size of a moose.
Yeah.
And those things, if they land on your car, you will die.
Terror.
It tells you that if you approach one, especially if it's a mother, you punch it in reverse and you get as far away as you can.
I just drove right past it. It was fine.
Well, I'm
Well,
glad
I
that
guess
you
you're joking.
survived.
It was literally like right over here too. I
That's
was like right around the
terrifying.
corner.
That's absolutely terrifying to me.
I just like slowed down and it crossed the road and I drove past it and went to work.
But yeah, the not deer was my big story. What you guys think about?
That was sick.
That was awesome.
That was
yeah.
You
great.
did-
Fantastic
I
episode.
love stuff like that.
Yeah, it messed with me the rest of the day because I'm like,
Yeah, I won't sleep tonight
because me neither. That's okay. I mean, we're gonna play D&D anyway.
until dawn.
Okay.
Until dawn.
But okay, so I do have a bonus story. It's called "The Nameless Thing of Berkeley Square." So
Lightning round.
it began in Berkeley Square, and Berkeley Square was constructed in 1740 by William Kent. Many important people had stayed there. A few of them are Winston Churchill, who stayed in building number 48, then George Canning. No idea who that guy is. No offense to George
Clooney's
Canning.
brother.
Exactly, thank you. Who stayed in building number 50, and it was in this building that the story took place. No one knows exactly when the building got its terrifying reputation, but the first incident was said to have happened in the late 17th century, and they started to escalate sometime in 1840, when newspaper reports began calling this building disturbed, haunted, and inhabited by something truly demonic. So,
That's a little spooky.
alright, so in 1840, the 20-year-old Sir Robert Warboys heard about eerie
Hold on.
rumors.
Is his last name Warboys?
Warboys, yeah.
That's a really
New
cool
band
name.
New band name. I'm
My favorite
coining it.
Black Sabbath song.
I don't know what you
So,
said.
Can we just talk about how I just set my hand on fire for a second?
Yeah, I
What
did see that.
did
I
you
just,
do?
I tried
Are
to
you
light
okay?
this candle and I completely engulfed my hand in
You
flames
wanna-
for one moment. But it's
Here.
fine. I'm not even burnt.
Here, just, buddy. Okay, please don't hurt yourself. It's not the one with the.
Yeah, it's
It's not the flicky flick.
scares me because it's very
Okay.
fast and big.
Dude, we're gonna be smelling Baja Blast and drinking Baja Blast.
Dude,
Because we got the Baja Blast.
in my veins,
Yeah,
baby.
We got the Baja Blast candle.
Okay, so more about Sir Robert Warboys. Alright, he heard about eerie rumors in this building, and as a student, he laughingly dismissed the tales as an urban legend. His friend disagreed and dared him to spend the night in the haunted second floor room. The guard gave him a room on the second floor, and Warboys entered the room with a pistol and a candle. About 45 minutes later, the guard heard noises coming from the room. Then he heard the pistol shoot. He ran and smashed the door down, and in the room, he saw the most horrifying thing in his life. The room was exactly the same as before, but in the corner was Sir Robert Warboys' corpse. The terrifying part was the expression on his face. He had died in fear. The terrifying... Oh, yeah, I already read that. The guard didn't find any clue why he died.
But there was a pistol gunshot.
He just found a hole from his shot. Many years later, when the thing appeared again, the victims were 2 sailors from the HMS Penelope in Portsmouth, named Robert Martin and Edward Blunden. They came to Berkeley Square and stayed in Building 50. They walked to the upper floor and slept in Warboy's room. 1 hour later, Blunden woke up. Then he saw something gray crawling on the wooden floor. Blunden awoke Martin and took his gun, but then the thing jumped and landed on Blunden's neck. Martin went to find the police, but when they arrived at the room, it was empty. They found the very same horrifying expression on Blunden's corpse in the basement.
Oh my god.
Another victim was Thomas Littleton, who also stayed in the room. He saw a strange thing and he shot it. He was sure that it was dead, but he couldn't find the corpse. Many people who have seen this entity claim it takes the form of an octopus because of its slimy tentacles. Since 1938, the base floor of the building is used as a bookshop named Mag's Brother, owned by Ed Maggs. But the workers are not permitted to climb to the second floor just in case. Nothing has happened since then.
What the heck?
But basically, the story about this thing is that whoever finds it, whoever sees it, you look at it and you die. The nameless thing.
What
of the
about that
Laguna
guy who
Square.
looked and went for the police?
So they
and
it
died?
basically they look at it and it scares them to death, and it's like an octopus thing, and it seems to know how to like use weapons against people if these people are also being shot.
You ever seen Finding Dory?
Yes. Are you talking? What she know about cameras? Yeah.
What she know about cameras?
What she know about cameras?
Anyways.
Anyways.
That was very terrifying, and I won't sleep ever again.
Was
Thank you
that
for being on this?
Was that all?
That
you had
honestly,
prepared? That was good.
those were my favorite. I wanted to find the most mind-bending ones that I could.
It's terrifying.
The one from, honestly, the Berkeley one is terrifying, but it also, like, there have been no real pictures and reports to back it up. It was in the 1840s, and everyone was, like, doped up.
Yeah.
Like, heroin, everyone's like, heroin's great.
It was legal.
Like, everything, you know, I
It was
don't,
tasty.
I don't give it a lot of, you know,
Yeah, anything before like
traction,
1900s,
but
I don't give a lot of.
the Nada deer, especially being modern and so unsettling, because it's like, what do we walk past in
It's
our
like-
daily lives that masquerade as things that they are not?
It's like
That thing's not a deer, man. Like, whoa.
But,
it's like
like-
what
But I
is
feel
that?
bad for those drivers in Oklahoma who literally
Yeah.
collectively just started sobbing
Yeah,
over
sounds
a
like
deer.
supernatural almost.
It seems
Yeah, it's like it has a
it's-
perception filter that doesn't work
Exactly.
quite right.
The candle just flickered. I'm never gonna sleep again. I'm never gonna sleep again. I'm never gonna sleep. Guys.
Candles flicker, man.
Yeah, no, but
You're
it went
okay.
like whoosh. It went off for a second and then up as we said. Oh,
Candles
gaga.
do that literally all the time. He's out. You also knocked Mike Wazowski on the floor. That's what I was pointing at.
Oh,
But
I thought
yeah.
you were telling me to put the lighter down or you'd kill me.
Nah, I didn't care.
But yeah, that's why I was here on the podcast, is because I've been dying to tell you guys these stories forever.
We did 43 minutes.
That's a good one.
good.
That's
That
really
is great. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Rudy.
Okay. Is that gonna be the end of it?
Yeah, that's gonna be the end of
sounds
it.
good.
That's gonna be.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for
having
listening.
me,
Bye
guys.
bye.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for
joining.
telling all that stories.
I'll tell you guys more creepy stories.
Go,
if you
go.
want me
Good
to
night,
again.
everyone.
Awesome.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Just don't
So
sleep
true,
because
bestie.
Don't sleep because the
look
knot
at
deer will have your
bed.
feet. Done.